Hello, Reformed mythologist Nate Morgan Locke here with a myth about where the stories come from. Ananse is a West African trickster, the original Spider-Man. And as this story begins, the children of the earth are bored. They have no stories to keep them entertained. So Ananse decided to spin a web up to the palace of the sky god Nyame, who kept all the stories under his throne. When he arrived at the Sky Palace, he asked if he could have some stories so that the children of the earth wouldn't need to be bored anymore. Nyame the sky god laughed at him because Ananse was small and weak. He told Ananse he'd only give him some stories if he could bring before him 3 creatures: Osebo the leopard with the terrible teeth, Umuboro the hornets that sting like fire, and Aboatia the fairy that no man sees. Ananse agreed to the quest and climbed down his web, back down to the earth. Then he went to find Osebo the leopard with the terrible teeth. He found a piece of rope and asked if Osebo would like to play a game. Osebo was always up for a game, and he asked what Ananse would like to play. Ananse replied that he'd like to play the binding game. They would tie each other up. Osebo the leopard thought, "I'll tie up this little Spider-Man and then I'll eat him." Ananse said, "I'll go first." He tied up Osebo the leopard with the terrible teeth and placed him at the foot of a tree. Then off Ananse went to find Umuboro the hornets that sting like fire. Ananse came to the hornet's nest. He found a large banana leaf, a gourd filled with water, and a cork. He placed the banana leaf over his head like an umbrella and poured the water on top of it. Then he shouted, "It's raining! It's raining! Quick, hide in this gourd!" Umuboro, the hornets that sting like fire, flew out from their nest and into the gourd to hide from the rain. Ananse popped the cork back over the gourd and placed it at the foot of the tree, next to Osebo the leopard with the terrible teeth. Then off Ananse went to find Aboatia, the fairy that no man sees. Ananse approached Aboatia's house. He made a puppet, covered it in glue, cooked a bowl of yams and hid behind a bush. The smell of the yams wafted into Aboatia's house, and out floated the fairy that no man sees. She sat opposite the puppet, thinking it was another fairy, and asked if she may eat some of the yummy yams. Ananse pulled the string, and the puppet nodded its head. Aboatia enjoyed the yams. They were yummy. Once she had finished, she said thank you to the puppet, but the puppet didn't move. Aboatia got angry and said, "Thank you!" louder, but again the puppet didn't move. Eventually Aboatia got so angry that she slapped the puppet and got her hand stuck because of the glue. She slapped the puppet with her other hand and that got stuck too. When Aboatia tried to kick herself away, she got completely stuck. And then Ananse came out from behind the bush, took the fairy back to the tree where he had left Osebo the leopard and Umuboro the hornets. Now he had all 3 creatures. Ananse climbed up his web back to the sky god Nyame to buy some stories so the children of the earth wouldn't be bored anymore. Nyame the sky god was surprised. He hadn't expected Ananse to succeed. He reluctantly handed over his stories, and Ananse brought them down to the children of the earth so they wouldn't have to be bored anymore. So what to make of it? In this story, the world is a cruel place, ruled by a distant sky god who doesn't care for the children of the earth. The creatures of the world are ignorant and arrogant. They are especially dull and easily angered. The way to get by is to be tricksy and sly. Use cunning and craft to get your own way. The Bible paints a very different picture of the universe. It tells us we've been made by a loving God who has given us everything we need. Instead of needing a trickster to go up and twist the arm of a selfish God, our God has come down to us in humility in the person of Jesus. The Ananse story takes place in a primeval time before the children of the earth have any stories. It's the story of a man who represents the whole human race, bringing a number of creatures before the sky god to solve the problem. In the book of Genesis, it's completely the other way around. It's the Lord God who brings the animals before the man to see what he would name them. And eventually, when none of them is suitable as a partner for the man, he puts the man to sleep, takes one of his ribs, and makes a woman. The Lord God brings her to the man, and the problem of his being alone is solved. So what do you make of the myth of Ananse and the stories? Leave your comments below and we'll include them in the follow-up video in which I'll go into more detail on how this Ananse myth relates to the Gospel of Jesus. I've been Reformed mythologist Nate Morgan Locke. I'm glad you were here.